The remarkable thing about the Queen is that, and you know, I suspect she's blessed with a lack of imagination, which makes her able to be absolutely consistent and relentlessly, endlessly consistent.
And it's the first time anybody's ever said blessed with a lack of imagination.
Well, you know, imagination is a dangerous thing. It can lead you up all kinds of dangerous routes, and I don't think the Queen has that kind of imagination. And because of that, she's able to be utterly consistent. This is my perception only, you know, and it's dangerous to go down that route.
Probably could say the same thing about the Pope.
Well, popes come and go much quicker. I mean, how many popes has the Queen been through, for example? You know.
There's so many quotable things coming out of this.
That's right.
So how did you watch a lot of video of her?
Oh, yes, of course.
You read every biography?
I read every biography. Robert Lacey's was very valuable. And actually, the one that I found the most valuable was a book that was written by her nanny when Margaret and Elizabeth were from an age of about 3 to about 18. They had this nanny called Crawford, something Crawford. What was her name? Terrible. I can't.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was known as Crawford. And when she was let go, she suddenly found herself without employment, and wrote a book about her experience, and it was considered to be a most appalling betrayal, but it was very valuable. Although it's a rather sycophantic book, actually it gave great
totally
insights.
in praise of the Queen.
Well, the Queen is a little girl at that point. She's not a queen. You
Yeah.
know, she hasn't become queen when Crawford writes a book. She has no possibility of becoming
Now, why
queen.
was that the most valuable book? Because you understood what she'd gone through, and therefore...
No, because I understood then her background, her upbringing, and also, much more important, the nature of the personality of the person before she became the monarch.
So what... Go ahead.
No, just so her true character, as opposed to the character that she had to embrace along with the job kind of thing. So it was that I kind of looked at a lot.
For all this reading from watching, help us understand what we will see in a minute in your portrayal.
Well, that inner sense of responsibility, I think, that came, I think she had long before she became the Queen. And there was one little tiny piece of film that I watched over and over again of her when she was about 12 years old, getting out of a car and meeting a dignitary just as a posh little girl doing a posh girl's job, you know. But she does it with such gravitas and seriousness, and I've got to do this right, you know, and there's no smirking, and there's no, you know, aren't I cute, or, you know, aren't I lovely, or aren't I rich and
duty,
posh.
duty.
It's just duty, and she had that, I think she had that naturally as a young girl. You see her with her sister Margaret in those funny, you know, films, and she's always looking after Margaret, saying, come on, but not in a bullying or control freak way, sort of helping her along. Someone, we've got to go this way now, and no, don't run there, and, you know, we've got to be quiet now. So she's got that sense of responsibility.
Tony Blair. I saw the movie Helen talked about. It was just terrific. I mean, I loved it because I love politics. This is Tony Blair when he calls on the Queen the morning after Diana's death. Here it is.
Good morning, Your Majesty.
May I say right away how very sorry I am?
Thank you.
Is it your intention to make some kind of appearance or statement?
No, certainly not. No member of the royal family will speak publicly about this. This is a private matter.
I don't suppose anyone's had time to think about the funeral yet.
We've spoken with the Spencer family, and it is their wish, it is their express wish, that this should be a private funeral.
Right.
And the public, ma'am?
The British people?
You don't think a private funeral might be denying them a chance?
A chance to what? This is a family funeral, Mr. Blair, not a fairground attraction. I think the princess has already paid a high enough price for exposure to the press, don't you? Now, if there's nothing else, I must get on. The children have to be looked after.
Of course.
Well, goodbye, Your Majesty.
Now, is that the way Tony Blair is?
I've never met him. I've never met him.
We take educated guesses
it's just
about
a guess.
these things, you know, but guesses that are backed up with a lot of thought and research, but nonetheless a guess.
Okay, what's the essence of your story about the Queen and her reaction to the death of
Well, I mean, the events of that week were very her son's ex-wife.
Yeah.
The
No,
events
I know that now, but
the events of that week were very dramatic, and they also produced tension between you know, an elected Prime Minister and an unelected
monarch.
Monarch, yes. Well, Blair had come to office promising modernisation.
Don't point at me when you say monarch, Steve.
You may not have noticed, but you're playing the bloody part.
I know, but I'm not her.
I can see this is going to
But you played the bloody part.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So forever
Anyway,
now,
sorry to interrupt.
forever now,
You
when
were
we
saying
think about
very
her, we'll
wise
think about
things.
you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I got it.
So, but
I was trying
explain to the
momentarily,
audience to make them interested to go watch
Well,
the movie. What is the dynamic of the Queen and how she responds to this?
Well,
What makes that interesting?
She chose not to, after the day after Diana had died, she chose not to speak publicly. Blair spoke publicly because I imagine he just thought that was expected of him.
Of course.
She chose not to speak publicly for her own reasons.
Which were?
That Diana's family had asked for a private funeral, that she wasn't any longer a member, that Diana was no longer a member of the royal family, that somehow, if all this nonsense was going to be going on in the press, she shouldn't be part of that sort of circus.
Oh, she could have done this without it being a circus. Come on, I mean, she could have acted
Not
with...
really, not really. And then as the events of the week, as all the people came out with the flowers and, you know, candles and everything, it became more like a circus and drove her into an isolated position. The truth is that Diana's arrival in the royal family must have caused such turbulence. Well, we know it caused turbulence, but it must have been so shocking for them all.
Because she was so young and beautiful? Because she was so modern?
Because she was so modern.
different? And...
Because she was so modern.
Yeah.
And because she was like a sort of movie star and,
yeah.
you know, like pop music and Versace and the things that my daughter likes.
She liked, and she was of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Or it certainly became of
absolutely.
that, too.
And then, I mean, personally, I think the royal family behaved rather badly towards her. And I think the marriage was the real problem.
And you think?
What
The royal
about?
family, what your director just said. You think the royal family behaved rather badly about
No,
her?
I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know. I don't know those people. I mean, I met Diana very briefly once. I don't know, and I think the whole world of gossip and intrigue and people making statements about who should have done this.
This is
and
what
who
the
was like
movie's
that.
about.
Well,
You tell her, John. You get your head
it is,
chopped
but
off.
it's
Little hornet's nest here.
Absolutely.
yeah, but.